Hey folks, welcome. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Let me know if there's any audio problems. We had last minute audio problems. Once again, welcome everybody to Counter Clipping Show number 76 for May 30th, 2022. It looks a little different tonight because we're using StreamYard. So since we're using StreamYard, let me put the new ticker up. It's very fancy. So thanks to you know who you are. For the assistance with StreamYard. So tonight, it's up in the corner and it's super tiny, and we're going to have to think about how to fix that. But we are drinking Oban Little Bay still. I swear this is the biggest 750 milliliter bottle of scotch I've ever had. And we are clipping the brand new Russian campaign from Compass Games. This is the Jedco 1974 edition, and it seems to me very nice. So we're looking forward to getting this to a table at some point as well. Interestingly, and I'll talk about this in a bit, I have a backup clipping piece tonight, which is going to be Russia Besieged. So this is the Oregon Laminations 2.5 millimeter standard counter clipper, and I cannot fit those Russia Besieged counters. Like they're oversized and they're super duper thick. They will not fit in the clipper. So we are using the Ares counter clipping kit instead. So I'll have a video about that when it's ready to go. But I will have clipped an entire game with it by the time I make the video. So tonight's topic is OCS. Now, we've talked a fair amount about OCS, of course, on this channel, but we have never actually done an episode about OCS. With the on-air sign will, if I turn it on, it will be white. So it doesn't really look very good if I turn it on. So, and that's, that is a function of lighting in the room, which is adequate. We'll hope to have interesting news on all that sometime soonish. So, the pour is larger than the pick. Yes, I'm trying to be generous with this stuff, actually, because I really like to see the end of it, just to clear the shelf space. But that's just doesn't seem to want to be cooperating, right? I after all this time, I still have Oban Little Bay left, and I didn't think it was. It's okay, but it's not great. So before we do anything else, let's say hello to Daniel Barney. Thanks so much for your support. It is much appreciated. Carl Creeder from the Wargame Bootcamp, Dale Brady, Fast Hines, Joe Okabayashi, Christopher Prest, Mike Anthony, Tim Zale, Stephen Roberts, Vince C., Block Oddity, Michael Potts, David Imperato, John C. from the sunny Philippines, William Bird from ENC, James Whitmer, Matt Taylor, Bill Simone, Viper Dave, Six Actual, Alan Salazar, FS Mura. I think we're saying that right. If not, let me know. Stigler is in the house. Achilles, Six Actual. Did I get you already? I did get you already. Ken X or Ken 10, depending on what Ken's feeling like that day. Bill Thornton, Marty Sample. That is fabulous music by our very own Dan Pencaldi. So we're going to be mixing that up a little bit in the future, though. Joe Perez, Kilroy, if Kilroy was here, Anton Clota, Michael DePaul, John Clark, Jeff Beeler, Chet Bell, Jacob Guernsey, Fucko is in the house. Matt Davidson, John Longshore, Kyle Reese. Thank you, Kyle, for the Ares counter clipping kit. My opinion on it, by the way, is pretty positive so far, but we'll get to that when we get to the video. Daniel Henning, Brian Gash, Block Oddity is drinking a Kirkland Costco beer. The Costco stuff's usually not bad, actually. So anyway, we are a clip in here, Russian campaign, and it's one counter sheet, and it's really not even a full counter sheet. So we're going to be finished pretty soon. So that is why I say I have the backup game. Now, I am way slower with this Ares thing than I am with this. I can tell you that. So I actually misclipped a counter today for the first counter in probably 10,000 counters. So what's going on? So yes, for those of you who did not see it, the Player's Aid had a video on OCS featuring yours truly. And I am pleased to say that it is getting about twice as many hits as the Player's Aid's normal fare, which in turn is at least twice as many hits as I usually get. So I don't know what the metrics are going to look like on that or anything like that. But thanks to Alexander and Grant for having me on. It was fun to have that conversation. It was done at Buckeye Game Fest. Go watch the video if you haven't seen it yet. It's great fun. So go check that out. So everything here, originally these counters were single-sided, of course. So they put looks like entry dates on the back of these, which is a great idea. But some of them say special, so I guess we're just going to put that in, special. And yes, so please do like, subscribe, and all that stuff. I'd love to tell you to go to the merch store. However, after careful consideration, I have suspended merch store sales. Merch store was through Teespring, wearing one of the shirts right now. I have generally been very pleased with the quality of the shirts. However, I placed an order with them back in December and got jerked around. And I do not want to send, you nice people to a place where you're going to get a 6-month delay where they don't even send you an email that says, sorry, we can't fulfill this order. So I raised a stink. I tried to get support, through the proper channels, and nobody was helping. So I went to Twitter and started mentioning the CEO and the COO of the company. And boy, wouldn't you know it, somebody got onto it right away. So they fixed the situation, but I still don't want to have, I don't want to send you folks to a place that's going to have, a bad experience and minimal accountability. So we'll have news on that. No merch store right now. There's still tons of links and hundreds of videos that I can't scrub out without, like hiring a team to do that, which we're not going to do. So I've scrubbed it out of the current videos. What is the significance of the HQ unit in the Russian campaign? I don't know, but there's a Hitler unit. I can tell you that. I don't know what that does. I'm more curious to see what game effect that has than the HQ units. It looks like they're army group level HQs. So how they behave, I do not know. Somebody it didn't take long for somebody to spot that in the ticker, did they? So John, I'm glad you got it. A lot of people have them, right? I can even order them still, but like I said, we may have just been lucky, or I was unlucky, or whatever. It wasn't a t-shirt that I ordered. It was a sweatshirt. And they just, jerked me around. So not happy. I may turn it back on at some point if there's a conversation with them. I am absolutely chump change to that company. So, it's not like I got like a bunch of financial leverage here. Anyway, what's going on? So we did play OCS last week with Third Winter. At this time, all Soviet fronts, I'm playing the Soviets. At this time, all Soviet fronts are in regrouping posture. That's probably not going to last for more than another turn or two. But we'll see how that goes. We are also continuing to play Pacific War. I may have news on Pacific War content soon, not super soon, but sometime soon. We finished the Coral Sea scenario, the Coral Sea battle scenario, which we thought was pretty good. Both sides actually got caught pants down, unable to properly deactivate their units at the end. So this is true. Valuable collectibles, Brian Jarvis. Good call on that. So Ken 10 says that Stukas fly from the HQs, and Luftwaffe support is constrained within a certain radius. Okay, that makes sense. So, I mean, this is, a very old game. The Jedco version is almost as old as I am. So there's that. We're about to start the midway battle scenario of Pacific War, and it is a huge scenario. Oops, this is wrong. It is a huge scenario. So you've got what sure feels like the bulk of the Japanese fleet floating around down there. Now I will point out, we are live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. Why? Good question. Is it worth it? Good question. I don't know. Almost everybody that's watching is watching on YouTube. So, and that's fine, but you know, new platforms and all that. So we will see how that goes. What else do we have going on? We did do the RPG stream a couple of, 2 Sundays ago? Was it last Sunday? Well, it was obviously the previous Sunday because yesterday was the last Sunday and we didn't do a show. I did do a video game stream. I may do a video game stream in the off week slots since the plan is to do every other week at the moment, although that's going to change and I'm going to have news. Well, I guess I got news now. So thinking about it. So I will have a co-host, Pat Mullen, on the next role-playing stream. And I said co-host, not guest. It's going to look different. It's going to be a little more structured than the last one was or than this show is. But I did want to have a different show structure. So I can get almost twice this amount of text into the ticker too. So I got like all kinds of stuff. I did buy some stuff from Noble Knight in the sale, you know, some more stuff. So that's on its way here at some point. Holiday weekend and all that stuff. So Palelu 99 and Farshad Niazi, thanks for stopping by. Yeah, the Japanese especially, because the Japanese are going to be way farther from their ports. So what will happen is I will say, okay, here are the mission units for this mission and this mission, and because I'm playing the Japanese. And here's the day we got to turn around and head back to port, or you know, because we're not going to sink the ships. Christopher Prest is asking about keeping notes in. I don't have a journal for it. That would be awfully formal, but I do have a little notebook that I write stuff down in that I'm using for Pacific War, and I actually did that with at Europa as well. So reminder, it's in the ticker. But reminder that next week's show is going to be the Origins preview show. So we will talk about Origins next week. I'll mention again that we're going to be running Europa there in the Armchair Dragoons area. So stop by and check that out. Right now, there have been some sales of tickets for that, but it's certainly not sold out. So there's plenty of space. There is no expectation that you got to spend your entire Origins at this thing. You can sign up for 4 hours and just play the 4 hours, and we'll work it out. It is all good. Just do that. So Palolo 99. Yep, I'll be there wearing the Ardwulf's Lair garb, hopefully the entire time. I don't always go on Sunday, and I might not this time either, but I might. I don't know. We'll see. It kind of depends on Dan from No Enemies Here is in the house. Yes, exactly, Dan. That is exactly it. I don't have to worry about making any new friends at Origins with Europa on the schedule. So it's all good. So the topic, we'll talk about the schedule at the very end of the show. I'll hit the schedule again, but the topic for the role-playing stream, and it is going to be at 3 p.m. on June 5th. So that is next Sunday, right? Yeah, that's next Sunday. So 3 p.m. June 5th is when it's going to be on. So tune in then. The topic is going to be GURPS. So, and I will otherwise... Yeah, I'm going to know, Dan, I'm going to shower at home because Origins is 20 minutes away. So I swear. Reese Johnson from Singapore. Thanks for stopping by. We're going to play some. Yes, Marty, it is. We're trying to bring it back. We are going to do a second front scenario, and we have a streamlining optional rule in mind where it basically condenses all the air into a big pool of points. instead of having to like, hey, we got one combat, let's roll the 65 rolls for the air system. So, John C., I have not seen the Top Gun movie. I'd kind of like to. I'll be honest, I don't like Top Gun. I didn't like the first one, not really because of Tom Cruise, not because of the macho posturing or any of that, but because of Kenny Loggins. I hate Kenny Loggins. So, and I know he's not the only person that did music for that, but the signature track of the movie is the Kenny Loggins song, and I hate it. So I don't know if Kenny Loggins has been, resuscitated or exhumed, as it were, for this film or not. One would hope not. I've heard the movie is very good. So the Clash of Arms Winter Storm series. So there are several games in that series. I think the best known of which is Edelweiss. There are, I think, at least one and maybe two other games in the series, maybe 3 or 4. But it's kind of obscure. But the people who have played it seem to like it. In other news, by the way, it does seem like, speaking of ancient doddering classics, it does seem like Coruscant Pocket 2 will be out soonish. Stuka Joe has a video on components of Coruscant Pocket 2, which I listened to the video because I was driving at the time. I didn't watch it, so. I don't know. How complicated can it be, really, right? So the back of the counters are color coded as well, with colors based on the year, and that's a nice touch. I like that. I like that very much. I don't have I'm putting the whole game in one GMT counter tray, by the way. Yeah, well, Stuka Joe's got what looks to be a finished copy, so I don't know. It could be a prototype, but he didn't say that. So I was surprised too. So who knows? I hope it does show up. I wish Jack the best in his endeavor. So Jason W., I think the second person that. Oh shit! Here's more Army Group South stuff. The second person who has said that in the chat today. So, okay. So Marty says it's a prototype. So I don't know. Stuka Joe ought to get him some attention, though. I can tell you that. Oops. That's a boo boo. Yoash the Juggler. Thanks for stopping by. We intentionally chose a Europe-friendly time slot for the RPG show. So FYI on that. That's why we did it the way we did. At 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time is 8 p.m. British Summertime. And so that is why the rationale there. And we're actually gonna do the second episode. Well, it'll be the third episode, but the second episode of the retooled show will be the following week, and then we'll be on a week off, week on rotation. So, week on, week off rotation. So it's the 5th, the 12th, and then 2 weeks from the 12th. So those are the schedules. So I'm not going to reveal the topic of the show on the 12th, but the topic on the show on the 5th will be GURPS. So, and Pat's running a GURPS campaign right now too. So he will have a really well constructed GURPS campaign, I might add. So he will have a lot of interesting things to say, interesting perspective based on that. So I think Dan might be tapping into the stash tonight. I think it's possible. So a guy that I know back in the Cleveland days owns a game store in somewhere up there, and he said, "Hey, don't you have a YouTube channel?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "Hey, send me the link." I sent him the link. He's like, "Holy fuck! What the hell? I didn't know you had all these people." I'm like, "Yeah, me neither." How about that? So that's a thing. So yeah, we'll be doing some promotion on social media for it as it gets closer. In the meantime, we've got some things to do like bumpers and intros and all that jazz. And I got to get Dan his new intro for the Tuesday show too, so that he will stop complaining to me about how come he's not in the intro video. So although it's on Dan's channel, tomorrow's show is on Dan's channel. So tune in over there, and any production problems are his fault. We did do, by the way, a video game stream. We did Elder Scrolls Online on yesterday, and I streamed for about an hour and a half. And you can watch the whole thing on Twitch. But if you I had technical problems. I had a driver crash in them. AMD drivers are pants on fire garbage. So I had a driver crash and I lost about half the video. I had to reboot, got back in, didn't disrupt play at all, but it certainly did disrupt the video. So you only got video about the last half. And the beginning of that is me cussing because AMD drivers are garbage. So have fun with that. The video will be up on the digital channel on Wednesday. So Brant, thanks for stopping by. I understand man's got to have his priorities. Maybe I'll have a different priority when the time comes to run Europa in your area at Origins. Huh? How about that? So, reminder that I do still see super chats in StreamYard. So we're running everything through StreamYard now. And I think it is, it doesn't do some of the things that OBS does, but it's a lot easier to use, and it is basically bulletproof, unlike OBS or Restream or these other things. So I actually like hockey, but Dan's got opinions about this, since he's from Canada and all that stuff. So anyway, OCS is the topic tonight, and as I mentioned earlier, we are still playing the third winter, and it's slow going because we only have 3 people right now, and that's it's a big game, right? So one person we'll do like half a turn and then say, "Oh, yeah, we're leaving." I did talk to somebody about the training videos recently, and I have, continue. I'm making slides is where is the hang up. It's very tedious, and I need a ton of them. And that is the delay. But I have every intention of still doing those. And in fact, well, I guess let me talk about this because this is going to have an impact on this, right? So my wife and I have kind of officially, as of a few days ago, like officially like talking to loan people and stuff like that, on the market for a new house. So here's what that means. One of the criteria is, and I have no illusions that this is going to happen in the next month. What that means is that one of the requirements is that I have to have a space, right? Now, this space, we'll see what I have the flexibility to do, right? It would be nice if I had enough space to build a dedicated studio to record shows in. That would be sweet. But minimally, there needs to be a place to store and play games. And I back of the envelope today, and I think I need about 10 bookcases to store all my games. That's a lot, but it's not, if you got a basement or something like that. But the thing is that, if it's going to be it doesn't have to be a basement, but if it's going to be a basement, that basement better be bone dry. Because like here, man, the basement is an absolute horrifying saw-like swamp. It's awful. So we're not going to be doing that again. So we'll see what that turns into. And more space opens up the possibility of me doing different types of videos than I can do right now. Because I'll have, the room to set stuff up and leave stuff set up, right? So that is, that's the goal. We are going to take our time with the search for a couple of reasons. One, I think everybody agrees that real estate prices are going to go down in the next 6 months. To what extent that will happen is a great question that I don't have an answer for at this moment, but we'll see what happens. But I think everybody's in agreement that we're going to see them go down before they go up, and we'd like to take advantage of that. But we're also committed to taking our time with the process and not rushing into it like we kind of did here. This house is very small. A2D2 Wargames. First of all, welcome to the stream. Secondly, best is, you could ask me on 2 different days which one's the best, and I'll give you 2 different answers. And I think that's true of other OCS players too. I really do like Third Winter a lot. I do think that my favorite OCS game is probably Baltic Gap at this point because it's got all of the pieces. My wife does have a YouTube. Oh yeah, maybe that's a possibility. We'll see if that will work. Good catch, John. You are right. My wife does have a YouTube channel. So thanks for those who hopped over to her channel to subscribe. She does a lot of video game content. She's not feeling well right now because she had a tooth pulled, a molar pulled, and it's taken a while to heal. So she's kind of miserable, and it's difficult for her to talk. So yeah, Captain Asparagus, I'll settle for a nice desk, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be that elaborate. I'm willing to to build as I go, and a bare basement, like I said, as long as it's dry, is fine by me. Plus it's got to have like we'd like a sunroom, and we'd like a variety of other things. Smolensk is excellent. John C has picked up Korea, and a lot of people picked up Korea because it's when MMP has a sale, they clearly would like to empty the warehouse of copies of OCS Korea, which is unfortunate. It doesn't have the cachet of World War II East Front. And that's too bad because OCS Korea is really very good. I don't think that Burma is the best, but it is different than all the others. I will say that. And the people who like it love it. I will say that. John Longshore's favorite is Case Blue because he has it and you don't, which I could, that's sort of logical in a way. I do have Case Blue, so it's not on the shelf behind me anymore. So the other thing is that I'd actually like to have decorative stuff behind me, which will include some games, but won't be all games. And I'll be able to do that if I could build a studio. Now that's it'd be nice. It's not a required thing, right? Some kind of space is required. And it doesn't have to be a basement. It could be an attic. It could be, although if it's like a bare studs attic, then where I got to build it from the studs out, then that's probably more than I'm willing to deal with. But if it's an outbuilding, like above a garage or something like that, sometimes you see that around here. So we'll see. Daniel Teets. Yeah, I think that sounds correct to me anyway. Correct me if I'm wrong. Should he upgrade from Tunisia and Sicily to Tunisia 2 and Sicily 2? So the short answer is no. But there's a couple reasons for that. Oh, Dan, that's a good idea. I will do that. I'm actually having her put CBD oil on it, to be honest, but which is helping. And she only had it out on Wednesday, so it's not super. It's not like it's been weeks or anything like that. Yeah. So Tunisia 2 is a substantial revision to Tunisia 1. However, because of that, nobody really wants Tunisia 1 anymore. So you can get copies of it for cheap, like sometimes as little as $25. And Tunisia 2 can go for $150, which is, I think, not. I wouldn't consider it reasonable unless you're like, you know, you have to have it because you're super interested in the Tunisia campaign, for example, which could happen. So I would say if you have Tunisia, unless you are trying to get all the OCS games, I mean, that's fine too. If you are, then okay, go get Tunisia 2 on the secondary market. It's out of print now. Dan, thanks for stopping by. Dan's got to, you know, do his duty and all that. So now Sicily 2 is a completely different game from Sicily 1. I do think it is worth your time. It is worth your time, but you're not upgrading, right? You're replacing, you're adding a new, different Sicily game to your shelf rather than updating. They're higher than they were, I can tell you that. I'm not prepared to talk about that. I don't have numbers or anything like that in front of me yet. We called and talked to somebody, and everything, he says everything looks good, and we'll have a letter on Tuesday probably. So James Whitmer, yeah, that's an accurate characterization of Case Blue, but we had a lot of fun with it. It's very mobile in a lot of places. There are places on that map where things will be kind of static, and there are places on that map where things will be highly mobile, and exactly where that happens depends on the specific game that you play, right? You as the Germans have the ability to determine your operational objective, whether it's going to be Stalingrad or the oil fields of the Caucasus. So you, Christopher Prest, boom, dropping the mic on Dan. Awesome. So one nice thing is that Ohio, and yes, we are looking in Ohio, although it's not Columbus per se, is a pretty reasonable cost of living. Not on topic, but Achilles asks is WIF the best World War II global campaign game? There are people that swear by a World at War. Okay. There are fewer people who swear by things like advanced ETO or something like that, or you know, I know of no one that swears by, for example, the John Prados' Third Reich and Great Pacific War from Avalanche. I think WIF gives you the best, as global war, World War II games go, I think WIF gives you the best experience with an easier set of rules to digest than a World at War, like a lot easier, like an order of magnitude easier. I started watching the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, and I lasted about 15 minutes. I thought it was boring as fuck. So maybe it gets good in minute 32. I don't know, but I'm not saying I won't try and watch it some more, but I was not interested in it at all. So, yeah, Jeff Beeler mentions the Tunisia 2 Order of Battle. It is a decent improvement over Tunisia 1. That is absolutely right. So if you can get it for a price that you think is fair, whatever that is to you, then yeah, I would go. I would go for it. So yes, ADG did lose. We talked about this last week. I mean, that wasn't all their stock, right? Because they had some in North America and some in Europe, and but their Australian warehouse was a total loss. And I hope that they will be able to, you know, claim insurance on that or something. I don't know. Larry Kenobi. Larry Kenobi needs a bagel with whitefish salad on it. Anyway, if somebody else is enjoying the Kenobi show, good for them. I have generally liked the new Star Wars shows that they've had on Disney Plus. Just the first 20 minutes or so, I thought was a snooze fest. they're setting up. So is that entirely fair? Maybe not. So, somebody mentioned, Tim Zales mentioned the new Star Trek. Presumably you mean Star Trek Strange New Worlds. So there have been 3 episodes so far, 4 episodes so far, I think. And I've watched, I think, 3 of them. And was it John? I thought it was a fire. Was it not a fire? Is that what they're saying? Or did they change their story? I think they changed their story. So, yeah, Case Blue. If I think everybody knows that Case Blue goes for an absolutely bug nuts amount of money. And to be honest, I don't think it's worth that price. And I say that as somebody who has played Case Blue, who has Case Blue. So keep that in mind. I mean, I've got it, right? So what do I care whether you get it or not? But I don't think it's really difficult to justify a $500+ sticker price, right? So my advice is don't get Case Blue. If you're really interested in the Stalingrad campaign, try and run down a copy of Enemy at the Gates, which you can play with the current rules. OB's out of date, maps are a little out of date, all that stuff. But so what? And you should, not saying you can at any given moment, but you should be able to score a copy of Enemy at the Gates for less than $100. Maybe is 75 if you're lucky. $800 for Case Blue is insane. I think it's insane, but I mean, it is an enormous game, right? It's got, I don't know, 3,000 plus counters and 10 maps. So it's not like you're not getting a lot of product, but you got to think about, are you going to play it? I mean, think about that, right? That's awful expensive shelf ornament, right? I mean, I picked up War in the Pacific, but I'd like to play War in the Pacific, and I think we can play War in the Pacific at some point. But War in the Pacific, not Pacific War, which we're playing right now. I'm not speaking for HMS GRD. I don't like to call him HMS GRD because that implies that Winston's group GRD was in on the scam, and I don't believe that to be the case. Case Blue does have a vassal module, and it's a pretty good vassal module. Generally speaking, unless the game is ancient, the vassal modules for OCS games are pretty good. So there's that. So you don't necessarily have to deal with a non-existent or shitty vassal module. Definitely a different scale than Case Blue. Chad Kennedy asked about Streets of Stalingrad from L2. There was supposed to be a new version of that at some point, but I believe that fell apart. And there's a number of there's at least 2 other groups that came out of that group that are trying to do their own Stalingrad game. Some of which are at different scales than Streets of Stalingrad. Streets of Stalingrad's like companies, it might be battalions. I think it might be battalions. I've never owned Streets of Stalingrad, and I honestly, I really feel like if I really wanted a City of Stalingrad game, I have Red Barricades, Red Factories, whatever the hell it's called now for that. So $200 is, $200 is still expensive, but there are at this point new games selling for well north of $200 too. So now they're big games still, but Coruscant Pocket is 4 maps. Coruscant Pocket 2 is probably a $200 game from MMP if MMP releases a game. like that. Bluntly, I think MMP would do a better job with components than what I'm seeing, but not that they're shabby, but MMP tends to do a pretty good job with that stuff. I know Stigler will disagree, but Stigler's never talking about MMP. He's talking about the gamers. So Der Weltkrieg is great. Yeah, I really like Der Weltkrieg. Justiguard just released another Der Weltkrieg video as well. So check that out. You know, having Dean on the show is not necessarily out of the question. Dan has done, I think Dan has interviewed Dean before, actually. Jeff Beeler asks, what OCS games provide the most interesting experience? Both sides being able to attack or interesting geographic challenges. So almost every OCS game is designed in such a way that both sides will end up in an attacking posture of part of the game, right? Again, I'll point out Baltic Gap. And I think Baltic Gap is better at showing that dynamic than Smolensk is. Because remember when Smolensk is happening. Smolensk is happening July to September 1941. So yes, the Soviets will do some counterattacks, but the Soviet army is really still very shitty in September of 1941. On the other hand, Baltic Gap is like 1944, and the Soviet army has come a long way in 1944, right? And Tunisia, yeah, I mean, but they'll all do that, right? Every one of those games will have major attack and defense. And this is one of the great things about Guderian's Blitzkrieg 2 is it covers the period of Soviet counterattack, like major Soviet counterattack. So how did we get on decision games here? Oh, Husa, we almost always play in teams. You can play most OCS games are best played as team affairs. Even when we did Smolensk, which is a one map game, it very easily breaks into two teams, into 2 against 1 or 2 against 2. And there's plenty of counters to move for each of the individual players. So you're not really, losing out on decisions because you don't get enough units, right? Blitzkrieg Legend is excellent, and the French attack all the time in Blitzkrieg Legend through the whole campaign. Now they're in many ways reactive. They are reactive counterattacks. Marty's right about that. DAC is probably the least team friendly game that I can think of offhand. And that's just because there's not that many units. I mean, what do you give somebody the Italian? So that sucks. So it's hard to split DAC cleanly. So if you're going to play and it is a huge game, right? It's a 10-foot map. So DAC or DAC 2, they're not that different. Moscow. Where's Moscow? There's Moscow. Most team friendly. Any of the bigger ones are very team, but even like I said, even Smolensk, Baltic Gap is optimal 2v2. One of the really big ones like Guderian's Blitzkrieg 2, you could do 3v3. It really depends on when you say you have a team, how big are your teams, right? Are they 2, 3, or 4 players? If you are playing, say, Case Blue and you're doing the whole thing, then I think so you can play Case Blue and Guderian's Blitzkrieg 2 concurrently, okay? And if you do, then it will accommodate 4-player teams very easily, 4v4. If you are only playing Case Blue, so Case Blue is really kind of 2 games in one. It's Case Blue plus Enemy at the Gates 2, right? You could get 4 players on a team in Case Blue, but I do think they'll be elbowing each other in the head a lot because it's a pretty confined space. But that doesn't mean you can't do it. And if you have a good table arrangement, I think you can make it work. So all that is to say that I think Case Blue will actually work 2v2, not just Case Blue, 2v2 or 4v4 or 3v3, I suppose, but that's maybe slightly less optimal. I love operational games. Beyond the Rhine does break well for teams. The way we played it was we had 3 allied players, 1 playing the British, 1 playing the Americans in the north, 1 player playing the Americans in the south. And you could split the Germans in I don't think you'd really want to split the Germans 3 ways, but you could split the Germans 2 ways. Now, I will tell you, I mean, as somebody that not the world's greatest Europa expert, but who has spent a fair amount of time at this point playing Europa, strong preference for OCS. Strong preference for OCS. I will cop to that I do think that OCS is best. It shines best at what it was designed to do generally on the East Front. Not that you don't ever get that experience in something like Beyond the Rhine or DAC or something like that. You will actually get it in DAC too, or you will get it in either DAC. But less so in the game like Sicily, where there's not as much room to maneuver. There's a little more room to maneuver in Sicily Triumphant Follies. It's Sicily, we'll call Sicily 1. So somebody gave me a thumbs up on Facebook. Thanks, whoever that was. I have no way to track that. So sorry about that. I have not sat down with the new Vietnam rulebook and compared it to the old Vietnam rulebook. I believe it was rewritten. I can guarantee that the Pacific War rulebook was rewritten. Achilles asks, is there a Pacific Theater OCS game? Yes, there is. Burma. And work is occurring on a game in China as well. So I don't know that that's coming soon, but it's being worked on. And there's a Luzon game set in the Philippines I think it's going to cover 41 and 45, 41, 42, and 45, I think. And that should be out soonish. Marty mentions that there are no OCS games starting with the opening of Barbarossa nor the end of the war in 45. That might change. We might see more 45 stuff from Tony Burkett and his team. I do know that there have been several attempts to do Barbarossa OCS, and none of those games have come to fruition. The last one that I was aware of kind of aborted. The folks that were doing it kind of gave up on it. So Jeff Beeler mentions that it's Luzon's probably going to be a magazine game. I think that's true, but there's also somebody's got to actually do the magazine, and I think that they still need articles for the magazine. I think that's where that's at. So, all right. So here we're going with Kiev in one compartment and everybody else in the others. Looks like we're setting up my military districts here, which is typical, East Front malarkey. So let me get these partisans. These are half-inch counters, by the way. If you didn't see the unboxing of this, go check that out. Half-inch counters, so if you really wanted bigger counters, you're going to be disappointed, but it's not like there's a lot of... It's not like the counters are hard to read or there's a lot of dense information on them. That's not the case. This let them do it on one map as opposed to two. Russia Besieged is 2. So, and it's got big counters. So 42, 43, 44. Well, could I get this in baggies? Yeah, I could. Fucko points out that using a counter tray for this, particularly in this day of counter tray shortages, is probably unnecessary. And he's not wrong, but I am nevertheless using a counter tray for it. So I prefer to sort in counter trays when I can, and it will. I wouldn't do it in 3 baggies. I would do each side would get a baggie for setup units, 41, 42, 43, 44 reinforcements. So you'd get about 10 baggies. Now, there's not that many units, but that's how I would do it if I was doing it in baggies. But this way I can do it in compartments instead. So it's all good. Jeff Beeler says the Europa magazine, the Europa magazine ran for like 85 or 87 or something like that issues. I mean, it was years long tenure on that magazine. And there's a lot of, if you're into Europa, man, there's a lot of quality content in there. New scenarios, new, tweaks to the orders of battle, optional rules and after action reports and all that stuff. It was a very good, if assuming you're, invested enough in Europa to subscribe to a magazine for it. We are clipping, you can't see it in the corner, can you? We are clipping the new version of the Russian campaign from Compass. Special. I didn't know there were specials, but the special's there. So one of the things that will not survive a move are these bookshelves. It has been pointed out that this shelf right here is sagging worrisomely, and that is true. And there were some history articles in there too. That's true. So it was a very good magazine. Whatever else, there is stuff to like about Europa, right? As much as I complain about it, and I kind of do, there is stuff to like about Europa. That said, I think that, generally speaking, I mean, it's a little tricky to do a direct, and I know I did one, but it's a little tricky to do a direct comparison between Europa and OCS because the scale is different. Okay, so on the one hand, the hex scale is very different. It's 5 miles. This is the OCS East Front scale. West Front games, Desert games might be different, and Burma, I'm not sure what Burma is. Billy bookcases are out of stock at IKEA nationally, by the way. I'll build my own if I have to. They don't necessarily have to look gorgeous. But so 16 miles per hex in Europa, and I think it's 15 for TSWW, by the way, for the curious. John Longshore could correct me if that's wrong, but I think it's correct. But the unit scale and the time scale, the turn scale is very different as well. It's even more different, really. OCS, you have 9 turns a month. In supposedly there's OCS games that vary from that, but if so, I don't remember which one that might be. 2 5x5 Calyxes will not fit all my shit, by the way. I need 10 bookcases, 10 Billy bookcases if I was doing Billy bookcases. And those are more efficient than Calyxes. Western Desert is good, but it does kind of come down to one die roll at the end too. So on attacks either on Tobruk, pretty much. I do think it's probably more, you'll probably have a better experience just playing. Ooh, we got more. Just playing Western Desert than you will play in War in the Desert. Playing in the old Western Desert, that is. So the unit scale between Europa and OCS is exactly the same. I mean, to, close approximation, it's exactly the same. It's kind of divisional, but at the same time, you've got tons and tons of units that are smaller than divisions. And I think that, I keep talking about the Europa's major problem really is a scale issue. And that's the thing that OCS fixes in a couple of ways. One, by actually making the map a turn schedule make sense for that unit scale. And also by fixing the air system so that it isn't incredibly burdensome to actually play. I mean, you can see there's hints in the rule book that, OCS was created in some sense as an answer to Europa. And I think you can see that in things. It's most obvious in regimental equivalence. But in OCS, that term is easy to deal with, right? If it's a regiment, it's a step is pretty much a regiment, unless the step is a battalion, in which case it's half a regiment. If it's smaller than a battalion, it's a quarter of an RE. That's it. In Europa, you have regimental equivalents, and you might have 2 RE divisions, and you might have 3 RE divisions, and you have to check. So, for example, the Italians in War in the Desert have both 2 RE divisions and 3 RE divisions, and you got to be able to tell the difference between the two. It's a pain in the dick. And that's not even the worst examples. Like some nationalities have 4 RE divisions, and I was like, really? Ugh. I do like the Kallax. I mean, especially for display. And if I had like a Eurogame shelf, I would probably want to use a Kallax. I'd probably David Thompson. Thanks for stopping by. Hopefully, we will run into each other at Origins in a couple of weeks. But I could fill up. I might be able to fill up 2 Kallax cubes with my like games that aren't war games and aren't role-playing games. So the other downside of Kallaxes is you got to mount them to the wall, or they're really quite rickety. I mean, if you're going to put all light stuff on them, you can get away with not doing that, but you're taking a risk. So Doug, that's kind of my preferred idea, but that's going to depend on what kind of space I end up having. The nice thing about a basement is you have that flexibility, and if you need support at the top, you can simply attach your shelves to the ceiling joists if you don't have a finished ceiling. And I'd be fine with that. And doing things like putting up fluorescent lights and stuff like that, that's all very easy to do. I don't really have a problem moving them, but if you put a bunch of weight on them and they're not mounted to the wall, then you're going to have an issue. That's what I'm talking about. The 5x5s are a little harder to move without making them all wibbly wobbly. Ben Thornton asks about Consim World Expo. Somebody here is probably going to Consim World Expo, but it's not me, unfortunately. That would be nice. There is no chance of that occurring this year. And I don't know that it's going to happen anytime soon. Like I said, I would just as soon. I've always wanted to go. I'd love to go, but it as we've discussed before, it's an expensive trip. If you're depends what you got, right? But a lot of war games are not very heavy, actually. If you put in like GBOH games or something, those are very light. I mean, but then you got to, more modern games, a lot of which have mounted maps and stuff like that. You got to be concerned about that. I'd be concerned about that. I like the art building idea too, but I'm not, gonna commit to that either. It's a great idea if it has a bathroom. It needs a bathroom, running water, air conditioning, all that stuff. So I'm not the world's biggest advocate of mounted maps. We're playing Pacific War, mounted maps, very pretty, plexi over them. We got plexi over them, and they're going to stay that way for a couple of months at least. Well, they've been like that way for a month at least already. But I end up tending to put plexi on them anyway. At least on GMT's mounted. I was coy about it in the video, but I find that GMT's mounted maps specifically have a lot of trouble laying flat. You can backbend them. You can also break them doing that. Where am I getting sizable plexi? I usually just go to Lowe's or Home Depot or Menards or whatever you got. They'll usually have it. Now, I don't know. I haven't bought it in a while, so maybe there's a shortage right now for all I know. I could deal with if you've got like the sloped ceilings and stuff like that, I could deal with the short bookcases. I would just need, 20 of them. and that's a lot, right? So which OCS game has the most optional units? What do we mean by optional units? I'm not sure I'm quite grasping that. William Aarons, thank you so much. Will there ever be a tournament that will play all 8 parts of the Barbarossa series in historical order, perhaps put on by the GMT folks themselves? 42. So we're talking about the Vance von Borries East Front series. There's 6 games out now, or 6 games have been released, of which the new Army Group Center is, the new version of Army Group Center. I think that it would be really cool. I think there's a very good chance that somebody will try to do that at, say, Consim World Expo. That's I think where you would end up doing that. Abraxas MF, I have not had that experience. I find that I even like setting stuff on them for days, weeks at a time, they still don't lay flat very, very readily. Now, frankly, again, and I own as many GMT games as a lot of people, right? And I'm I love GMT and all that, big fan of their games, all that, but the Compass and Decision mounted maps both lay flatter out of the box than the GMT maps do. So, and at least the Compass ones are printed in China. The Decision maps might be printed domestically, but I'm not 100% sure they're still doing that. Now, the other thing is that, remember, back to William Aarons' question, remember that Kiev to Rostov kind of starts at the end of the Barbarossa period, right? So it actually stretches into 42, where the other 3 games, as I recall, do not. They end in December or maybe very early January. So, it's going to be a challenge just to get to the Kiev to Rostov and or Crimea sections of the game. So that's a concern that you might have. But I know people have tried to play the whole thing. People have set it up at Winterfest before and put it all together. Now, Carl Creeder mentions that they tried to do it at the Weekend at the Warehouse, and bluntly, Weekend at the Warehouse is not a long enough event to accommodate a thing that big. I'm sure was a noble effort, and I'm sure the participants all had a fabulous time. But it is not a long enough event. You're looking at a WBC or a Consim World Expo for it. Braxis MF is right about the GMT boxes too. I don't have really a problem with them looking slightly different on the shelf. I mean, it's it does tweak my OCD a little bit, but we're now switching to the Ares counter device. By the way, this is the last of my counters for Russia Besieged. But what does irritate me is when their older counter trays do not fit in the new boxes. That is bothersome. Yes, you can cut the trays down. I am aware that you can cut the trays down. I don't want to cut the trays down, right? They're GMT's trays and GMT's boxes. The trays ought to fit in the boxes. So I have, complaints about GMT. I'm going to have a very mild complaint in that they don't produce games as fast as I would like. But who does, right? MMP doesn't produce games as fast as I would like. Compass doesn't produce. Compass kind of does produce games as fast as I would like, but they're not necessarily the games I would like, right? I want to see carrier battles Philippine Sea, for example. And I'd like to see the new Southern Cross game as well. And those things are just they're just a ways away. Hilariously, by the way, I'm like, oh, okay, I got to stream tonight. I got to find a game to clip. So I went to grab Enemy Action Kharkov, and then I got the box off the shelf and everything. And then I'm like, shit, these are pre-rounded counters. I can't clip this on the counter clipping show. I mean, I could, but it'd be stupid. And it's not the counter sorting show, is it? And that is a 15-minute job. So probably some companies do rush stuff. I mean, I think everybody has done that, though. I mean, that is not necessarily a company specific problem. You can point that back. GMT has done that. I don't think MMP has ever done that. Compass has done that, maybe. SPI did do that. Avalon Hill, not so often, but I could think of at least a couple examples that were a bit half-baked when they came out. So that's not a company-specific problem. Sometimes things get published before they should. I'll cop to that. Michael Oberly says he's not thrilled with the way their website shows your orders. I managed to figure it out, but it's maybe not as intuitive as it could be. I'll agree with that. I mean, GMT is clearly badly bottlenecked. You can start to see it clearing out now. Clearly badly bottlenecked in the production sense, because they've got so many games that have hit their numbers now that are just like not moving in their queues at all. Enemy Action Ardennes. I'm going to probably say that at least once more. Biznunya, thanks for stopping by. Enemy Action Kharkov does look really nice. I expect great things from John Butterfield on that game. And Stigler's right, too. There's always errata, right? It may be important errata, and it may not be important errata. But there's always errata. There have been games that got released because they sent like a, second generation beta copy of the rulebook to the printer. And they had to, create a complete upgrade kit to fix the game. Right. And that was GMT, by the way. I think at least 2 or 3 times, I think they've done that. So that's an interesting mistake to have made, to say the least. So, I mean, remember too, though, that nobody's designing games like SPI used to. Okay, where there was a design staff, even if that design staff for a long time was Jim Dunnigan and his personal aide de camps. Or aides de camp. Nobody works like that anymore in a wargaming space where you have in-house people doing the game designs. Everybody's effectively doing it as freelancers. And so it's harder to hold freelancers' feet to the fire if you're the publisher, particularly if you already have production queuing issues, right? So in the case of the Barbarossa games, the East Front series, I mean, that's not GMT. That's been the delay on those. That's the designer. And I believe Vance would agree with that. But I don't know what else was going on, right? He was nobody's doing this full time either, right? Unless they are retired, which I believe Vance is now retired. Incidentally, if one was hoping for real news on a release date in the Vance Von Borries interview in the latest issue of C3I, you are going to be disappointed. It is not in there. There is a somewhat, unspecific statement that says Vance Vance says he's going to start working on Army Group North and Army Group South now. So great, but we knew that, right? That's not new news. Not that we necessarily expected. It would have been kind of silly to expect, a hard date, right? He's not going to give us a hard date. That would be crazy. Yeah, David Thompson. This is going to be your first title. Zhang He is going to be your first title from GMT, is it not? So, I mean, they're the big dogs of the wargaming block, but they've got that doesn't mean they don't have their own issues. I absolutely cannot do these without looking at the counters, by the way. So, and it's way slower. I mean, part of that's because I'm, clipped 200,000 counters with these other things. But this does speed up as you go too. So there's that. Red Storm Baltic Approaches is starting to land. People are showing off their copies. It is in a box, by the way. Abraxas MF, generally speaking, it's roughly one a year, one issue of C3I. The magazine's always good, so I will have an unboxing of it Thursday. So it did feel like it was more frequent early on, but I'd have to actually go back and look at the dates. I'm not sure. I wasn't paying that close attention for a lot of that time. I do agree. Michael Oberly says that Butterfield is John Butterfield is an underrated designer of these games. I don't know that he's underrated particularly, but I do think that he is one of our most eminent designers working in the wargaming space today. Everything that he does has been that I'm aware that John Butterfield has done anytime recently has been good. I haven't played them all, but I have played, the D-Day games. RAF is one of his. I've even played Space Corps, and I kind of like Space Corps. If you want to play, you want to play Stellar Horizons, but you don't want it to take 40 hours, try Space Corps. There's very different games. That's a bit facile to make that comparison, but favorite OCS. I don't know that I have a favorite OCS unit. I do have a favorite GTS unit, though. And that is just because of the bizarre nature of this particular unit. In the Devil's Cauldron, I would actually fish this out, but I'm not going to. The game's on the shelf behind me. In the Devil's Cauldron, there is a counter for the SS marching band. And it's even got its own special band symbol on the counter. They actually, got rifles stuck in their hands and got told to go fight. So Paulo Mori is doing some very interesting work. I haven't really seen much about Caesar, although that is a thing that I may remedy at Origins, assuming they'll be at Origins. They might be. John Longshore says Mongoose is his number one company, considering he doesn't have every Traveler book. Yeah, so that's a thing, and I'll talk more about Origins shopping plans. I have a spreadsheet for this. Origins shopping plans in next week's show, but Studio 2 Publishing is going to be there. They are the onshore, boy, I'm not sure what to call them, distributor, printer, dealer, I don't know, for Mongoose Publishing, and among other companies, right? They do stuff with a lot of different stuff, and them showing up at Origins, they weren't there last year, but last year was goofy, right? So probably means that I am going to take advantage of that opportunity to pick up whatever Mongoose Traveler 2nd edition product I am missing. So we'll see what happens. Will there be an OCS Kursk game? There is one in development. I can tell you that. I think it's Hans. I forget who's designing that. I forget whether it's Hans Kischel or Stefan Aquaviva or somebody else. But there is a Kursk game in the works. What unit appears in the most OCS games? It's probably one of the SS divisions, I would think, because the series is weighted toward the East Front. But it could really be any of a number of Panzer divisions or Grossdeutschland or whatever. Grossdeutschland pops up quite a bit. Not as a division necessarily, but I mean as a regiment sometimes, and then it later became a division-sized formation. Do people play monster war games at WBC? I am told that the answer is yes. I have had nothing, but I am well aware. Let me put this delicately, not that delicately. I am well aware that Mongoose has had any number of issues in the past with things, including but not limited to quality control. And they continue to have some, I think, relatively minor snafus that have happened in the recent products. But I haven't been alarmed at any of those things. And my customer service experience has been exclusively with Matthew Sprange, I don't know. And I have had not only no cause for complaint, but generally have been very happy with his response and their ability to fix things that come up. And that has happened a couple of times, particularly when your order and the actual shipment of that order are separated by a year and a half. WBC is where they have a big tournament of a World at War where they play one game all week. Second Panzer pops up all over the place. That's absolutely right. 21st Panzer pops up a lot. But like 1st, 2nd SS, those are big formations too. So, all right, we are now done with. Not quite. I started putting this in a Aegis tray, but then I thought better of it, and I decided I was going to put it in baggies instead. Oh shit, I'm not done. In exactly the same way that I explained before, where the startup units go in one baggie and then it goes by turn after that. So got a half a sheet of Soviets left, which is good because I'm going to be finished here for the show. I need to save some for the video. Fireworks getting shot off down here. Welcome to the ghetto. Yeah, so don't count on. I mean, any monster game is going to be a prearranged thing, right? Nobody's going to have a pickup monster game. I mean, you might every once in a while you might see, a player drop out at the last minute and you got to fill the slot or something like that. But you could search for Iggy Cricktel. You could search for World Wargaming Championships. It's end of July, as I recall. I got the dates here. July 23rd to the 31st is the date. David Thompson. So a couple things on that. David is asking about the original AD&D 2E core books. not the revised black cover versions. You can look around at Origins. It is by no means impossible that somebody will have those, but I wouldn't count on it. What you might do is, assuming you're okay with this, is look at Drive-Thru RPG. They may have print-on-demand versions of those books. If my stuff wasn't in storage, I probably could float you copies of those. GTS Utah should make the pre-order page this year, is what we've been told. Jeff Beeler points out most common OCS allied unit 50th Northumbrian. Yeah, very plausible. That's in a bunch of different units, a bunch of different games, and it will be in cross-channel attack. I am big time looking forward to GTS Utah. Just finished off stream, Race for Bastogne. So if you're going to like Console World Expo for Monster Gaming, like, you know what you're going to be in before you go, before you get on the plane, right? So I did a lot of yard work today. I was still very marshy yesterday, so I did it today. I did a lot today, actually. Which is how I can justify drinking all this tasty, tasty scotch. Could we? Now that we're not gonna finish this tonight, but I'll have a little bit more. Next week, I think we'll be able to finish the Oban Little Bay. John Longshore says it's a tiny bottle. I'm aware of that. GTS Greatest Day is a wonderful package. It's got tons of tiny scenarios that you can start on. So exactly, that's why we have a ticker, and the ticker is fantastic. So I'm investigating Amazon to replace Teespring for merch, by the way, but we'll see if that works out. You can use Redbubble is another one I'm looking at. I started a Redbubble account. We're looking at that too. So we'll see what that ends up looking like in a few weeks. I'm not in any particular hurry. So let's talk about the schedule, since I have the schedule up. Today is the 30th. That means that tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern time, we have Traveler Tuesday. We have a look this time at Sword Worlds, the Sword Worlds book, relatively recent release from Mongoose Publishing. At 7:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, we have the show with Dan that's on the No Enemies Church channel. On a Wednesday, we have a RPG video, which is an Inside the Box. Inside the Box, in this case, being that is the Call of Cthulhu Kickstarter rewards that just showed up. It's very nice. On Thursday, the feature unboxing is African Campaign. No, that's not true. That was last week. The feature unboxing is C3I number 35. I should probably grade these out. Huh? So, and then if there's extra videos, which could happen, they'll be on Friday, but I don't know. And then we got the next RPG stream, which will be at 3 p.m. once again on Sunday, June 5th. We will not have as many attendees as we do in this time slot, but that's okay. I am cool with that. So one of the things with stream, oh, cool, it actually does. If I mouse over it, it actually does give me a breakdown of who's watching where. Somebody's watching on Twitch, so whoever that is, that's great. The Great War Channel. There was a point at which I actually considered, when it was time to start doing Wargame videos, actually considered exclusively doing World War I games. Did not end up working out that way, but I actually I did consider that for a while. Well, John, if you get it, that would be awesome. Pipe up if you do. That would be pretty cool. Good karma, I suppose. Abraxas MF asks if anyone makes aircraft data cards for the Wing Leader series on regular cardstock. I'm not aware of that. What I am aware of is the Game Crafter makes cards for, somebody makes cards and sells them through the Game Crafter for Red Storm and Downtown and I think Bloody April, that GMT operational-ish air series. And I actually picked up, since I decided I was going to go all in on Red Storm, because why not? I actually picked up their cards, and they're very nice. You're never going to shuffle them, right? They're data cards. They're not like randomized cards. So I probably won't sleeve them. They're absolutely hopeless not fitting in the box. That box is full. And in fact, that's another one where it's like, man, it's like 4 counter sheets. There's no way I'm getting all this in this box. So that's an issue, but it's gonna have to be baggies. Elusive Victory, I think they have cards for Elusive Victory as well. And they're quality wise, they're nice. So I was pretty happy with them. I thought I did a video on those. Did I not do a video on those? Maybe I didn't. I just put them away. So you can definitely, there's like a master list on BGG about what the easy way to do is just to measure them and buy the right sleeves. There are different kinds of sleeves that are different sizes for like US size and European size and all that stuff. So the easiest way to do is just measure the cards. So I have looked at the Origins vendor list, which is it's a graphic. It's not a text list, so I can't like parse it very easily. It's kind of a pain. But I think I'm going to be checking with Studio 2 at Chaosium and Enterprise Games, and I'm not sure I have anything to buy from Decision this year, to be honest. I'll stop over there and poke around, but I don't know that I have anything to buy from Doc this year, to be honest. I bought quite a bit last year, so I kind of like bought everything I needed last year. So John C. says that about 85% of all cards in war games come in the standard Magic card size. I believe that's correct, and I believe that is the European poker size, I think. I've seen people that put their ASL counters in those coin sheets, actually. I think that's crazy. Fuck was World War One. Or Faux. I don't know how to say that. He's French. What can I say? The guy that was in both was Pétain, who you'll, of course, know from, the Pétain Vichy government. That's why they picked him, because he was a distinguished picture from, I forgot to put the social media post out. A little late now. John also mentions Versailles. Yeah, Versailles 1919 is the one I have that. I don't know if it's like an official tarot card size, but they're like the longer cards. Somewhere I have a tarot deck. I don't know where it is. I bought it for D&D, of course, but yeah, I mean it is easier to look back in retrospect and see, hey, here's these World War I guys were absolutely ruthless about expending as much blood as they possibly could to achieve whatever victories they achieved on the battlefield. I'm not sure it was quite as clear as all that at the time. So I mean, everybody thought that, right? Oh dear, Captain Asparagus. Brusilov was pretty good. I mean, he was clearly the smartest guy fighting for the Russians, at least until the Tsar fell, and probably afterwards as well, to be honest. Now, I will say, I mean, you can go find on Amazon, you can go find sleeves for the tarot size cards, but it is a bit of a hassle to sleeve those cards because of their weird size. So, somebody said they're making a sequel to Spinal Tap now. So, yeah, the ME-109 shirt, I think you run the risk of that being considered to be in poor taste. So, the Spinal Tap shirt, I would have no hesitation. I mean, I wouldn't wear it to work, but I wouldn't object to that at all. Great movie. So, those of you who follow me on social media, there's links to all this in the video description if you want to. I think to Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Twitter is where I'm actually active. We have another rabbit situation. This one's not in the house, at least. There's this enormous orange rabbit that lives in somewhere nearby. We've seen him a couple of times. He's scared the shit out of me today when I saw him. He was like on my front step when I walked around the corner of the house, and this huge orange rabbit. So I do have pictures of them, but I'm not prepared to show the pictures at this time. Check out the social media feeds if you want to. So, yeah, the SS Panzer Division shirts were never in good taste. And even, I mean, yeah, so those people don't even get invited to conventions anymore. So, oh dear. He's pretty big. Actually, the first time I saw him, I was like driving down the street, like pulling up to the house, and I saw this orange thing chasing some other thing across the front yards, and I thought he was a big calico cat. This rabbit's easily the size of our cats. So, this particular rabbit, the rest of them are not. I think we saw the tiny bunny again, by the way, yesterday, or the day before. So they're not very good pets, in my opinion. But they also eat their own poop. So, I mean, that's a thing you got to be concerned about. You really want to eat something that eats its own poop. It's actually part of its digestive process. It digests it and then eats it and digests it again. So, chickens might be in those, in that category, like pigs, where pigs will like wallow in their own crap. But it's because that's where we put them, right? They don't have any way else to cool off except to cool off in the mud where the poop is. So it might be that chickens are like that because they're generally not treated well in captivity, right? They're kept in, unless they're free-range chickens, they're kept in very confined spaces. So there's a documentary out there about that. If you want to continue not feeling bad about eating meat, go watch the documentary. I have not played Bunnies and Burrows, and I'm not 100% sure that anybody did, but it's I have looked at it. It's interesting. It is an interesting curiosity piece. This is cute. That's kind of, yeah, it's that big. I mean, so there was a GURPS Bunnies and Burrows GURPS supplement. I mean, there was at one point there was a GURPS supplement for everything, right? So largely still compatible with the current edition. There's a couple changes that'll screw up point values, but other than that, you can still use all that stuff. So I don't really have any wargaming news to share this week, and maybe it's because I've been concentrating on other things, which is possible. I had a kind of really insane work week too, so there's that. Could have been. I think it was a smaller rabbit, actually. And yes, the bunnies with the rifles in Gamma World. I remember that picture very, very clearly. Some other game had, anthropomorphic rabbits with rifles, and they were called gun bunnies. I may be conflating that with Gamma World. It was also one of the best drawn illustrations in the whole early Gamma World book, as I recall. So GURPS World War II is pretty wargaming, according to Jeff Beeler. You can treat it that way if you want to. I'm not really sure that ever got that much traction, even though they did a whole bunch of books for it. You can certainly do... Oh, speaking of that, I did watch Operation Mincemeat, which is okay. It's very Hollywoodified with a love triangle, and I'm not sure if I talked about this last week or not. But I did watch it. It's okay. It's it's okay. I got Colin Firth in it. Everybody likes Colin Firth. What I am remembering, Captain Asparagus, is in fact Gamma World, but it wasn't first edition. I don't think I saw Gamma World until second edition Gamma World. I could be wrong about that. Mike Anthony, yep, start moving stuff. I hope to be joining you shortly. I saw the pictures of that in the on Facebook. It looks good. Moving trucks won't be available till July. Ugh, that sucks. I'll be glad to empty out the storage unit and not have to pay for that anymore too. Lelu99 says Operation Petticoat is the best World War II submarine movie. That is spoken like a person who has not seen Das Boot. Because Das Boot is the best World War II submarine movie. And it's not close. Run Silent, Run Deep is okay. There's another American one that's not bad. I forget what it's called. And I forget who was in it. So clearly it wasn't that good. But I thought at the time that it was okay. I still haven't seen the Forgotten Battle about the Battle of the Scheldt. I've got to get around to watching that. John Longshore says he started rewatching Picard and likes it. I watched the first episode of the second season. I watched all the first season, and I watched the first episode of the second season, and was like, I wasn't like crazy about it. U-505 was not a great... Actually, it's not a bad popcorn movie, but as a war movie, it's kind of a dog. So I think Dust Boat was originally a mini series, and then recently there was a new series based on it, or a thematic sequel or whatever. But I haven't seen that, and I haven't actually talked to very many people who have. There we go. John has received his C3I number 35. The game looks good. Burma looks good, as you'd expect, right? Mark Herman, blah, blah, blah. And the Lake Trasimene stuff for SPQR looks great. I'm very happy with that. Now, I would The Enemy Below is actually the movie I was thinking of. Greyhound, I don't think Greyhound is a submarine movie, though. Greyhound is pretty good. I'm like, how I'm paying for Apple TV, which is fucking crap. I might as well watch Greyhound. And Greyhound was actually pretty good. And Ted Lasso's actually pretty good too, but Foundation was trash. So Christopher Prestis finished watching Gettysburg in the serialized format. Gettysburg is, I think, if you watch Gettysburg as a cinema person, I think you're probably going to find it leaden and not that great. If, on the other hand, you watch it as a wargamer, I think you're going to love it. Both of those groups of people agree that Gods and Generals is a gigantic flaming turd. So even though the fake facial hair is somewhat better, and weirdly, the guy who plays Pickett, the guy, I can't remember this guy's name. It's the bad guy from Avatar. The guy who plays Pickett in Gettysburg plays Stonewall Jackson in Gods and Generals, and he's the best thing about the movie. Robert Duvall plays Robert E. Lee, and Robert Duvall is really good. Some of the performances are really good, but it's absolute lost cause nonsense, and it's structurally a very bad movie. The pacing's bad, everything else is bad about it. So there's been a lengthy video takedown of Gods and Generals, which also juxtaposes it with Gettysburg and explains why Gettysburg is a very good movie and Gods and Generals is a flaming turd. So I have also seen the director's cut. The director's cut's very good. So the guy that played, Grant's not going to be in Gettysburg. Grant wasn't in Gods and Generals. No, I don't think that's the case. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. Stephen Lang, thank you for those of you who have chimed in on that. He's very good as Stonewall Jackson. He plays Stonewall Jackson as crazy, which was as accurate, right? Glory's a very good movie. I haven't read the book for Gods and Generals either, so I don't know how much of the problems of the film are inherited from the book. It's possible Larry Kenobi. So it's possible that's the problem. It was also I think the book. Did Michael Shara write Gods and Generals, or did his son write Gods and Generals? I think his son wrote the third one. I think The Last Full Measure. Gettysburg does a little bit in a mild and I think mostly accidental way. Gods and Generals is really pretty egregious about it. So the Gettysburg at least gives you like a lot of perspective on the Union too. It's a different perspective than you get from the Confederate side, but you also get real conversations about the movie doesn't dwell on this because it's not what the movie's about, but there's conversations about what the war is being fought over in Gettysburg. Okay. And Jeff Shaw has written several other Civil War novelizations too. Yeah, Matt Davidson, this is exactly it. And Gods and Generals is a prequel, right? Not a sequel. So Grant's out west the whole time. And if he was in the movie, I don't remember it. So Grant's out west until after Gettysburg. Let me put it that way. In fact, Vicksburg falls the day after Gettysburg. That might be the video I'm thinking of, Jeff Beeler. In fact, it's if you're interested in learning why it's a bad movie, it's more worth your time than the movie. So now they are both Ted Turner movies. So. And Ted cameos in both of them too. So Stigler apparently watches Gettysburg every July 4th weekend. I mean, that makes sense, right? John C., I didn't know that. City of Vicksburg did not celebrate the 4th of July until the 1930s because of that. I can't say I'm totally shocked by that. James Whitmer asks, is Vicksburg more influential in ending the war than Gettysburg? Yes, I think so. I mean, you could have a whole show with like real historians on it talking about that topic, but I tend to think so. Right? It's Vicksburg that cuts the Confederacy in half. It's both a tactical, operational, and strategic defeat for the Confederacy, where the Gettysburg is only a tactical and operational defeat. Are there any other Gettysburg movies worth watching? I don't know that any of them are as good as Gettysburg. It is a really, I mean, from a like wargamer or military history nerd perspective, it really is very good. I mean, it's got its idiosyncrasies too. Like there's a lot of really terrible looking fake facial hair in it, and a lot of the extras who are, of course, Civil War reenactors are, shall we say, well fed. As opposed to the starving rebel army. But GBACW does not have a Vicksburg volume, nor does GCACW. GCACW is working on it. If Stigler wants to tell us some news about GBACW, feel free. So, I mean, Don Longshore says Vicksburg was more important, but if Meade had pursued ... The problem is that the arm there was heavy rain, and B the Army of the Potomac was badly mauled. I know it's a Union victory. The Union holds the field, but a couple of those corps were absolutely mauled. So they were really not in a condition to pursue effectively. And force a decisive annihilation of the Army of Northern Virginia. That was just not going to happen. So I mean, Lincoln said the same thing though. So there's that. War Room asks about Guns of Gettysburg. I haven't played it. It's supposed to be really good. That's all I know. It looks pretty too. I know that too. I've seen it on a table. Yes, Jeff Beeler, the gamers did do a Champion Hill Brigade Series game, and I believe that Herman Luttman has a Champion Hill game coming as well. I don't think I'm misremembering that, but I could be, I guess. So that's going to be the Shattered Union series, which is Herman's follow-up to Blind Swords, which is a streamlined Blind Swords, more streamlined than the series than the game in A Most Fearful Sacrifice. John C. mentions that the Guns of Gettysburg is very expensive on the secondary market. That's absolutely true. And I agree with Stigler. Vicksburg would be better as a GC ACW game than a GB ACW game. The Civil War Brigade series from MMP, the gamers, both in this case, was very well regarded by a lot of people, and I don't know, maybe they felt like they had done everything they needed to do in it. That's possible. Well, Jeff Anderson says about decisive U.S. victory at Gettysburg. I mean, in a sense, it was decisive. In another sense, it wasn't. I mean, decisive in the Civil War. There's really no example of an army-sized formation being annihilated, right? And that's what Lee was looking to do. He was looking to destroy a Union army, preferably on Union ground. And that's it just isn't something that occurred. It probably came closest at First Bull Run and or at Chickamauga. But at Chickamauga, you had George Thomas, who stopped that from happening. So it's very difficult to destroy an army in that period of warfare. So if that is what you mean by decisive, then yeah, I mean, but those battles, like, I think it's very difficult to consider it, say, Antietam a decisive battle or a decisive result. It is very important battle, though. It's arguably more important than Gettysburg because it gave Lincoln the political capital to issue the Emancipation Proclamation. So you can make a case that Antietam is the more important battle than Gettysburg, even though Gettysburg was bigger. And it was a more decisive result than Antietam was. That's a good point. David Imperato mentions Battle of Franklin. That's actually a pretty good point. This is one reason why John Bell Hood ends up on a lot of worst generals of the Civil War lists. Actually, I was looking at those the other day, and I was rather surprised to not see enough of them containing John C. Fremont. James Whitmer, I asked if Longstreet was correct in not wanting to fight as Gettysburg and seek better ground instead. I mean, you can't argue with the result. So I guess, we know they lost if they didn't do that. I mean, there's a lot of variables there, right? I mean, there always are. Does Longstreet manage to get his attack off on the second day? Third day? On the third day? Jesus. The Confederates launched attacks in an uncoordinated way. Lee had imperfect intelligence throughout much of the battle. There was a lot of variables happening there. Then you had Dan Sickles charging out, occupying Devil's Den, and just at random, right? And yet, his unit got mauled, but they cost a lot they cost the Confederates a lot of men and initiative trying to take that position. So I actually feel like Sickles, there's a case to be made for Sickles being a great hero of Gettysburg. It was still stupid, but it was part of the calculus that ended up with what we actually got. So. Yeah, Longstreet second day. Yeah, I always get that mixed up for some reason. Yeah, so the Hood's campaign in Tennessee is the subject of Hood Strikes North, and there is a Hood's Last Gamble game from I think it's a John Tyson design from Hollandspiel. That might be worth a look as well. It's going to definitely be a lighter game than GCACW, but of course I'm a huge fan of GCACW, so. Yeah. John Longshore says Dan Sickles is his sister-in-law's great-great-grandfather. That's got to be fun. Insanity Defense, invented by Dan Sickles. Look it up. So there's a case, like I said, Jeff Beeler, there's a case to be made for Sickles for that having been a good move. I mean, Meade was outraged, but like I said, I think there is a case to be made that Sickles contributed noticeably to the Union victory. And his leg was pickled and on display somewhere at some point. First Minnesota, yeah. I mean, one of the signature things that the movie Gettysburg leaves out is First Minnesota, right? I mean, there's so much going on there. It's a 3-day battle. There's so many formations. There's so many little maneuvers. You couldn't put everything in the movie, but I would have liked to have seen First Minnesota in the movie. Oh. John C. mentions that there's a book on the Hood campaign in Tennessee called Shrouds of Glory by the same guy that wrote Forrest Gump. There's a book called I think it's called Sickles at Gettysburg that I read. It's actually, he's an interesting character to read about in a lot of ways, but before the war as well. William Aaron's talking about Grant in the West, and then so the doctrine was different by the Overland campaign, right? It was obvious to Grant and to Lincoln that the mass of Union manpower had to be leveraged, and that did result in a lot of costly maneuvers, some of which reflected very poorly on Grant, like the Battle of the Crater, which you want to blame a variety of different people for that, but Grant signed off on that. So that did not go well. What is my favorite Gettysburg game? It's hard to say. I really do like Last Chance for Victory, but I haven't played Last Chance for Victory. I played Line of Battle, and I'm very confident in the ability of that system to model it. But I haven't played the Gettysburg game. I have played Three Dog. Three Dog's very good, but these are regimental level games, though. Really looking forward to getting a Most Fearful Sacrifice to the table, though, because that is going to be a lot easier to play and deal with than a regimental level game like Three Dog or Last Chance for Victory. Guns of Gettysburg is very highly regarded. Cold Harbor is another one where a Grant does not exactly come off at his best, right? So the whole channel schedule, along with other stuff, is in the ticker, so I'm not going to belabor it again. But I will say next week on this show, we will be talking about Origins 2022. So bear that in mind. We'll be back at 8 p.m. Eastern. And we'll be on Dan's channel tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. So if anybody's got any last-minute questions or comments, please do chime in right now, because otherwise I'm not going to get to you till next week. John Longshore, that might be apocryphal. I'm thinking that might be apocryphal. Jeff Beeler, your screen cuts the ticker in half vertically or horizontally? James Whitmer, should Sherman be seen as the best general since he understood the true nature of warfare at that time? Maybe. I think you could make that case. I think that is a case you can make. He was not necessarily the best. I mean, I don't think anybody thinks he was the best general in terms of like tactical or operational acumen, but in terms of strategic acumen, he was just as good as Grant. Horizontally. That's weird. That's weird. I don't know what's going on with that. It seems to be working for everybody else, though. There is David Imperato. So they've decided that they're not going to release a giant 3-game, $7,000 kit containing the first 3 GB ACW games. So they're going to release them individually, and the first one on the list is 3 Days of Gettysburg. Frankly, it does need a little bit of extra polish. There's some minor stuff. There's some stupid mistakes in it, to be honest. Like the names of the different kinds of rivers or streams or whatever they are being different on the terrain key than they are on the map. That was irritating. Yeah, you can figure it out, but it's dumb, and they should fix that. There's also scenario issues. There's not enough scenarios. There's not enough small scenarios. So you really do need. It really does need some more development, and they're going to give it that. So I'm very, very happy about that. Jeff Beeler, 50 inches. God, that's horrifying. Somebody's a masochist. All right, everybody. So thanks very much for stopping by. We will be here next week. One thing I can't tell is how many people were in the stream, but I can check that after the fact on YouTube. That I didn't send out any of the social media posts probably was not helpful. So oops. And, hey, we'll talk more about OCS at a later time as well. And I will certainly, the post-Origins show will have at least an hour of me complaining about Europa. So just to put that on the calendar. All right, everybody, thanks again for watching. We'll see you all next time.